It's time to take a stand and stop the sexualization of our children. Action for Canada has created a notice of liability to assist you. The title of this NOL is Facilitating in Exposure of Minors to Sexually Explicit Educational Resources, Activities, and/or Events. The United Nations has mandated that all member nations implement the Comprehensive Sexuality Education Resource. CSE is a learning platform that was developed within the context of a program developed by UNESCO. This so-called resource sexualizes children at the earliest ages possible, and it's no surprise that it's causing great harm to our children, as well as attacking the traditional family unit. According to Section 163.1 and Section 152 of the Criminal Code, as well as the Canadian Centre for Child Protection, it's a criminal offence to sexualize and exploit children. Here at Action for Canada, we've been working to expose this evil agenda and to empower parents, grandparents, and concerned citizens to take a courageous stand. In an effort to assist you, we've created a page on our website where you will find an incredible assortment of information on this issue, including the various programs that have been introduced into our schools. Beyond the Basics is the resource used in Nova Scotia, WIN Sex Ed is used in Ontario, CSE is used in Manitoba, and SOGI 123 is used by the rest of the provinces. By introducing these programs into our educational system, our children and youth are being exposed to sexually explicit pornographic materials in the form of books, magazines, and comic strips. Our kids are also encouraged to become members of organizations that promote sexually deviant behavior and the exploitation of minors. Be sure to take advantage of this notice of liability, which will advise teachers, librarians, trustees, ministers, etc., that they will be held personally liable for exposing minors to any form of pornography or sexually explicit material, as well as any activities or organizations promoting sexual deviancy and the exploitation of minors. By using this valuable NOL, you have the ability to demand that the CSE learning resources be immediately and completely removed from libraries and the education system. That all of the books listed, including titles by the same authors, be immediately removed, and that all educational facilities, including libraries, cease and desist promotion of any and all activities, including performers and clubs that exploit our innocent, impressionable, and vulnerable children and youth. Knowing is not enough. You must take action. Here are some powerful actions you can take to protect our youth, no matter your age or station in life. Pull your children out of public schools and universities. Run, facilitate, join, or help with a homeschool group. Get involved in writing letters and serving notices of liability. Run for office as a school board trustee, mayor, or city councillor. Connect with an Action for Canada chapter near you. We cannot ignore this message. Our children and youth are being subjected to twisted ideologies using social justice as a means to indoctrinate and groom them, and we must protect them. Thank you for taking a stand to protect kids. If you like what we're doing at Action for Canada, please consider making a donation to support our ongoing work. And be sure to join a chapter near you. God bless you, and God bless Canada. Hello and welcome, friends. It's so good to be with you as you join us for another informative show this first Wednesday in May. If this is your first time here, you've come to the right place, where we are committed to providing information and resources for everyday Canadians. Tonight, Action for Canada's founder and leader, Tanya Gaw, is having a conversation with our National Chapter Leader Coordinator, Kim McBride. The title of tonight's show is Advocacy is Driving Great Wins. It's May 6th, 2026, and this is the Empower Hour. Action for Canada is a national movement reaching out to millions of Canadians and uniting our voices in opposition to the destructive policies tearing at the fabric of our nation. Through call to action campaigns, we educate, equip, mobilize, and empower citizens to take action. We are committed to protecting faith, family, and freedom. We'd like to invite you to participate in the ongoing prayer walk for revival, which will be continuing until May 22nd. For those of you who have been attending the prayer walks, we'd love it if you'd share your photos with us. If you're involved in a local chapter, please send your photos to your chapter leader. If you're not involved in a chapter, send your photos to pastors@actionforcanada.ca. We'd also like to encourage you to join the National March for Life next Thursday, May 14th at 10 a.m. Every year, thousands of Canadians gather on Parliament Hill to be a voice for the voiceless. We march because we believe that every human is made in the image of God and is worthy of protection, dignity, and respect from conception until natural death. In case you're not aware, Canada has no abortion legislation, and abortion is legal up to full term. This reality raises serious ethical concerns and a desire to see greater protections for our most vulnerable citizens. So mark Thursday, May 14th on your calendar, and please attend if you're able. Now, if you're not able to attend, please pray for this event that hearts and minds will be changed. If this is your first time joining us, Tanya Gaw is the founder and leader of Action for Canada. Tanya and the Action for Canada team are committed to bringing public awareness to the many serious issues facing our nation, including tonight's topic, showcasing how advocacy is driving great wins in our country. Tonight, Tanya is joined by Kim McBride, Action for Canada's National Chapter Leader Coordinator. Kim began following Action for Canada's call to actions in early 2020, and in July of 2021, she became Calgary's chapter leader. The following year, she became the National Chapter Leader Coordinator. Tonight, Tanya and Kim will be discussing the importance of organizing and mobilizing Canadians through grassroots advocacy and government lobbying and showing how your voice matters. Tonight's interview was pre-recorded, so there will be no Q&A this evening. And now, my friends, I invite you to sit back and get comfortable as we listen to this very important and informative conversation between Tanya Gaw and Kim McBride.
Well, thank you, Heather. And Kim, welcome. I'm excited about tonight's show.
Lots to share. Very excited.
Well, I thought this was just a really good opportunity. We've had some really good wins, and this has come from years of advocacy. And that's what we really want to focus on tonight, because Canadians were overwhelmed just getting through the COVID era. And I think there was a lot of trauma involved emotionally, for so many people physically. And then we came out, on the other side of that. And of course, for myself, I'd been fighting a different kind of battles for many years before COVID. And that was to bring awareness to what they were doing to our children in the school system with the sexualization and indoctrination. And then as well as the immigration and flooding Canada with immigrants that will never and have no desire to align with our values. And then, of course, the World Economic Forum and the Sustainable Development Goals, which we'll be talking a little bit tonight about as well. So I was really covering a whole lot of material before COVID came, which gave Action for Canada an advantage once we came out of, like I say, that era into a battle fully ready to continue to take on the government, which was a little different than other organizations who only developed because of COVID and quickly disappeared, after that battle had passed.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, absolutely. There's so much on the plate, and there was so much coming at people that to process the information, process the trauma at the same time, and then looking for leadership. And that was one of the things that obviously when I joined the organization, I was looking around to make sense of the nonsense that I was seeing. And of course, Tanya, I've shared before that it was you standing on the steps in Vancouver and proclaiming Canada as a Christian nation, but also proclaiming that we have God-given rights. And so we all could feel and sense that there was this disconnect with what we thought Canada was all about. We thought we were a free, democratic country. And then all of a sudden, we're getting these mandates that made no sense. So, of course, I'm looking around as just an ordinary citizen who is a critical thinker. And then when I came across your leadership and you standing on the step bravely, I know you had the paper shaken and you've talked about those times, and yet you stood there bravely because you have the power of your convictions. And so your leadership, of course, it really reverberated across the country. And in doing so, it created the communities of like-minded people that are the silent majority that didn't have the exact right words to be able to say, what they knew was wrong. They could feel it was wrong, but they didn't necessarily have the words. So I want to thank you, Tanya, and the whole organization and everybody that has made Action for Canada what we are, which is still like true to our grassroots, just Canadians. And when I say just, that's not just. We are Canadians. We're taking back our country. And so having that leadership from people that are putting it all out there has created great wins. And I live here in Alberta, and so we're seeing lots. So I know we're going to get into that tonight, but it's a group effort, and it does take leadership. And you did stick your neck out, and other people have joined you in that mission, and the rest of the public has joined to say, I'm going to start speaking up as well.
And I think this is a really critical part of it. And as you point out, that people need leadership. And I would have never in a million years ever considered myself to be leading a national organization and actually international. I'll be meeting with some people from Australia who say, we want to do what you're doing. We want Action for Canada here. I've had people reach out from Mexico. We know that people are following us from all over the world. And so that's really exciting. And more so, the gal that I'm talking to from Australia said, Tanya, we have lots of groups here, lots of freedom groups who, are active, but they're just not getting the wins, and they're not as organized as what we've been able to accomplish here as an organization. And that didn't just happen on my own. I had a good 4 or 5 years sitting there, doing my calls to action and trying to rally people. I got up to about 500 people on my email list, and people were saying, you need like an actual organization, need to go bigger. More people need to hear about this. And with that, I'm going in my mind is like, now we've got a major, massive list of people, but our problem is censorship and them trying to shut us down, not deliver emails. And if that's anybody, if you're having those problems, reach out to us. Make sure you whitelist us and add us to your contact list so that we can overcome these obstacles. But it emphasizes the reason as well why chapters are so important, because they can't censor you and your community in one-on-one conversations. And that's I think the best part of our strategy is mobilizing citizens within their community with effective resources. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight. And that we hope people will share our information, get involved, and really consider joining Action for Canada maybe in a more meaningful way. And because we're at war, and we really need to act and behave like we're at war. So we need all hands on deck. So Kim, I think what I'll do is I'll get into sharing Action for Canada's page. And what we have planned to do is go over a couple of recent actions to show people how we are applying pressure, why it is we do call to actions, why it is that the letter writing is important, and that these elected officials who have really run roughshod over our Constitution are realizing now with the public uprising that their position and their seat isn't as safe as it was maybe a year or 2 years ago, and how important it is to get new people into those positions. For those of you who are maybe seeing this for the first time, we take about 10 minutes of your time and we send you an email that you can read, and you will be more well educated on an issue in 10 minutes than all of what you're being hit with from the internet. And out there, when you're being hit by all these podcasters, who want their numbers up on X and they're just piling you on with information, what they're not doing is providing you solutions. And that's what Action for Canada is about. So we give you a rundown of what it is that we're going to be addressing on the Empower Hour. We always try to bring experts in, whether it's Dr. McCullough or Alex Newman or people of the like, Tom Harris on the climate change fraud, and the other, any videos or things that would be of assistance as well. We've got this wonderful friendship with Alan and Corey Huntsberger from Talk Truth. They go into something like 8.5 million homes in Canada through the network that they're involved with. And this is really critical at a time when we're being censored with our emails. This has been such a blessing with Talk Truth to be able to have this opportunity to get our message out there even further where it cannot be censored, because you come in, you turn your TV on, and so far the government hasn't been able to censor that. So it's important, but it's also important for Talk Truth that you go on and share their Rumble videos. They're on YouTube now as well. And that's how we're going to get this information out there. We're going to be covering tonight, this is what we put in our actions as well, all about solutions. One of our greatest solutions is that you've got to be supporting candidates and raising them up from within your community and helping them get elected, whether that's door knocking, whether it's donating, and you must volunteer to be scrutineers. And a scrutineer is somebody who shows up on election night to help count the votes. And if it's machines and tabulators, we're very concerned about that, then you need to be writing letters to your premier and the provincial elections and telling them, we don't want tabulators here. There's too much concern about fraud. You got to apply the pressure. Otherwise, this is just going to happen. And there is no doubt in our minds, it's being proven that these machines are indeed committing to and facilitating fraudulent outcomes. And then, of course, we'll be covering information for you to become chapter leaders or to join a chapter. This is our weekly email page. If you go to Call to Action, you'll see weekly emails. It just shows you what we're pumping out every week for the Empower Hour, and also our urgent calls to action plus our wins. Everything's posted on this particular thread. If you went down and down and down and down, I'm going to make you dizzy. You're going to see how much work that Action for Canada has been doing over the years. And again, under call to action, there is urgent actions, and that's specifically the calls to action. So if you're ever got 5 minutes or 10 minutes and you think, okay, I have time to do a call to action, get on here and participate. Your participation is critical to winning. So Kim, let's go into this one. I mean, a couple of these are in Alberta. That's a hot spot right now because so many good things are happening there. But Calgary has been, Calgary and Edmonton I think are two of the most concerning cities functioning or not functioning well, with woke leaders that are at the helm right now and putting forward 15-minute city densification. So explain what happened here and why we decided to send out this particular action.
Yeah, sure. So in actuality, right now, we have had a shift in our leadership in Calgary. So I personally am in Calgary. And we had a shift in leadership in our last election. But a lot of it was related to the pushback from the public against this massive rezoning that they wanted to do. They want to shift the bylaws. They want to really gain control over, when I say they, I mean the globalist agenda and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Like, it's just peppered through every single municipality. and Calgary's no different. So the goals of, when you just read it, 17 of them, we're going to help people not be impoverished by, controlling the entire food supply. We're going to help people not be thirsty by, we're going to control all the water. And so it's under the guise of we're being progressive that we're going to make these wonderful changes in this collectivist way and we'll be more organized. So that was sort of laid down for years and decades in Calgary, which is funny because I don't know if people know in the news, but Calgary's had 2 massive water main breaks because the infrastructure in the city has not been maintained over the last 20 years because they've been busy with their woke agenda, particularly starting under the then mayor of Calgary, which was Naheed Nenji. I forgot his name now. Anyway, yes. Anyway, he's the now NDP leader in Alberta, running for the premier position eventually. He's looking for it. But Naheed Nenji was in here in Calgary and at the time. So that was years ago. But this sustainable development goals were kind of put into Home is Here strategy and our climate initiatives. All of that was brought in. So anyways, that's what they were focused on with the council. And they neglected their the infrastructure. They were hired by the taxpayer to manage our city. So what ended up happening is, because of all these water main breaks, they're seeing this as a really great opportunity to control our water, to make sure that we can ration it back. And so they were looking to do rolling. Rolling rotations for being able to water your grass. And they wanted to be able to shut off your water if you weren't going to be in compliance with their orders. And so there was this slow creep that was coming in. And now that we have a somewhat more open and listening council, I would say, we had an election that brought in some people that are speaking up for their constituents. And so we had one of our councillors bring this to our attention to say, hey, I've got concerns about how restrictive this is. They want to put smart meters on all the houses so that they would be able to track just exactly how much consumption is happening, when, and how often, what time of day, and this sort of thing. They're coming back to tell us, on the record, they have said, no, we're just an overall consumption. We don't want to pinpoint it. But it's always a slippery slope because they say one thing and then you find out 2, 3, 10 years later, they always had the ability to be able to surveil you. So that spying culture, that surveillance culture was sort of built into this proposal to this amendment that they wanted to bring in. And so they put a pause on it, actually. We got on the action right away, others in the city as well, and the councillor as well. So he got on it, he put it out to his people, and we got a hold of it too. We put it out to our people, and people responded. And that's what happens. We focus the issue. And this is the thing that gets me. I've been talking about it forever. I'm like, okay, guess what, City of Calgary? I can find 22% savings if you fix your leaky pipes.
Right
because
here.
When you look at it, it says right there, in our action, if you guys take a good look at that action, 22% water leakage in our failing system.
Right.
So I'm saying, you know what? Before you come after us citizens for wanting to have a vegetable garden in the summertime or to have a lawn or whatever, instead of that, how about you deal with your infrastructure? You'll find 22% savings.
And I think, Kim, if when we put out a call to action as well, one of our team members put together this action. She did just an amazing job with the highlights. Like, who wants to spend right now? We can hardly put food on the table or pay mortgages, and they want to spend $160 million for these smart meters. Well, just stick to the meters you've got. Fix the infrastructure. Currently, they're using approximately 43% of its licensed water capacity. So it's not even at capacity. Plus, we find out that there's a 22% water loss through leakage. So when you send your mayor and a council these kinds of facts, this is something that they can work with. They understand the pressure. So, Kim, just a little correction. We did lose this one, and they voted 10-5. But hear what Kim is saying. people are working really hard now to get good people elected into office. So those 5 people deserve a world of thanks that they held the line. The one where they put it on the pause is the next action that we'll cover in just a moment in Cowichan here in British Columbia. But it was important for other reasons because city councillors were also providing feedback. They were responding to the call to action campaign, but because down at the bottom, you'll see that we write a simple letter. You simply copy it. You select Command C or Control C. You pop that into your email. Then you copy the email addresses. We try to make this so streamlined and so easy for you that literally you could do this in 5 minutes or less. You send it off, and then the mayor's office was actually engaging very nicely with me. I was going back and forth quite a bit, but then you've got Councillor Kelly, I believe it is, provides one. It's like, no. In other words, nothing to see here. There are no concerns. Oh, don't be silly. We're not going to be surveillancing, how you use your water and how it's only, to manage your billing. But right. At the end of the letter, what they did say, and this is where we want things on record to hold them to account, if come the middle of summer and they are actually violating the information that they gave the public. So it says smart meters are used to measure total water use for accurate billing and early leak detection. Well, how about take care of the big leaks first, right? That was one of my responses. They do not track how water is used inside a home and are not intended for surveillance. Their purpose is to help neighbors identify leaks sooner and ensure fair billing. What do you mean help neighbors? I guess, but you see what we're saying. So although, we had a loss in this situation, we're going to continue to press in. If you've never heard about the Sustainable Development Goals, we provide you a link so you can see the nonsense. Look at how much they have spent on all these colorful modules to provide about zero hunger, good health, and all the rest of it. And even in here, when you see the attacks going on against farmers, there's industry innovation in infrastructure, consumption, climate change. Anyways, they want to get rid of all of your chickens and poultry, and it has nothing to do, none of this, Sustainable Development Goals, none of them, they would equate to saving the planet. There are more people living in poverty now, including in Canada, than ever in the history of Canada and throughout the world than in the history of the world. More people are living in poverty today. So it's proof that none of these sustainable development goals are working. They never were intended. It was to force policies to trick people into thinking they were doing something noble. And we've been fighting this battle for years. For me, since about 2017, but when Action for Canada came around in 2019 and it was official, I love that. What the WEF is going on. Canadians did not elect this lunatic. There's Klaus Schwab saying you'll own nothing and be happy. So again, we would provide information, trying to educate the public and alert you to what was coming, and it is here. They are not even shy about it. If you come to Action for Canada's page under current issues, you can go to One World Order or World Economic Forum, and you can find some of the greatest amount of information that we could possibly provide on our web pages. You can find out who's tied to the WEF as far as global leaders are concerned. Let me just see. That must be on another page as far as the individuals. Canadians, there it is. Canadians with ties to the WEF. Let's just go down. Here they are. Oh, who's that? Was that Chrystia Freeland? What? She's a WEFer? I don't know. Yes, she is. And there's Melanie Jolie. Remember? She was the one that was kind of tipsy in the pub saying, just talk really loud and, you'll get your way. I mean, these people, how they got into office, they're not fit for duty. They're really not fit for duty, but there is a list. Again, we just wanted to cover that. This is what Kim was talking about, Cowichan Valley, land use backlash. This is where they were going and hitting the farmers, trying to restrict their farming, their growing of vegetables, how they function on their farms, chickens. They want to know how many chickens you have, cattle, and the rest of it. It's so invasive. Somebody said the other day that our generation of kids will never know what it's like not to live under surveillance. And that is pretty sad when you think about all the cameras all around our cities and towns right now that are supposedly for protecting us from all the mass immigrants that are coming in that are violent. It's just a joke. It's never meant to work. This was meant to destroy us. So Kim, we'll go into just quickly, because I really want to get to our big win in Alberta. When it comes to 15-minute cities, when it comes to these kinds of offenses, Action for Canada truly has been on the front line. Pierre is our chapter leader in Winnipeg. We've mentioned this before in the past, but we're mentioning it again right now because of the Sustainable Development Goal number 6 being, them trying to put that forward in Calgary. And then, of course, the Sustainable Development Goals, they actually use those terms in the towns and the cities' policies. The SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. So because of that, I want you to know we have resources. We have really great resources on our 15-minute city page. We have a notice of liability. All you need to do, don't get overwhelmed. Just take some time on Action for Canada's page and educate yourself. Share our information on social media. Share it in these groups that are in these towns and communities trying to find answers and fight back against their corrupt mayors and city councils. In Cowichan's decision, because 100 people showed up and it was heated, it is reported that it was a heated time in council, and with this committee, the committee backed off. Even those who were voting for it, because of the public backlash, they backed off, but only for 6 months. They've paused it for 6 months, these sneaky Dickens, and so it's not done. And
so sorry to interrupt you, but that's the Cowichan action, is that they put the pause in that. That's what you're saying.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And so they tried to do that as well with the 15-minute city that was being implemented in Winnipeg, and Pierre stayed on it like a dog on a bone. Every notice that came out from the city council, because they have to know, you might have to dig deep, and they'll say, oh, well, it was on our webpage. We did notify the constituents. So we have people in communities that are actually watching that very closely. Kim, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you underscored that last point there, is that because of the leadership in these communities where we have an Action for Canada chapter, and we have kind of a point person or a go-to person for resources, and when people come up with an issue or they say, I've seen this come up, should we take action on that, or how would I take action? Then we provided the leadership to be able to do that. But it really took, again, the fact that the public responded, and then they took ownership over their own community. They were inspired by our resources. They had our tools. They had the education, the spotlight that we put on the issue. And then they took it for themselves because it was applicable to their neighborhood, close to home. And so because they felt that it was concerning them, they knew then what steps to take action.
Exactly.
And that's what switched things around.
Good. Yeah, thank you. And as Kim is talking, you can see that I'm scrolling through our 15-minute city page. And I want you to know, on any of our major pages, we always bring on experts to talk on the issues about your rights. This one with Jeff was a great Empower Hour. He showed you how to dig in deep into the cities, what terms they're using. 15-minute cities is being red flagged. We'll try C40 and, other terms. So it's important to know how to dig into that. We've covered so many different things. And of course, all of this is based on climate change. And, we need the 15-minute cities and this infrastructure. And it's all bogus. It's a whole big, huge, massive wealth transfer because, $160 million to put in smart meters. Well, we've got functioning smart meters. Fix the pipes. Right? Put the money into the pipes and knock it off. And so these are the kind of things you need to know so that you can go in and do a delegation, get your courage on and get in there before mayor and city council. Anyways, at the bottom of the page, it just goes right into a whole bunch of other information and videos if you wanted to dig deeper into that. We have news reports on the side here. Like, I love the one about, all these battery operated cars now. And of course, if there's a collision, they're blowing up, there's fatalities. The e-bikes are actually catching on fire in people's homes. They park them in the homes and the batteries catch on fire. So there's a lot of dangers to this. And so you can just come if you want a few things where you could send it to an elected official, just come and see the resources. We've got wonderful flyers. Print them off and spread them all over town, right? Leave them on the poster board at your local grocery store. Okay, so where are we going next? Oh, this was just the current issues page. It shows you all the different topics that we've covered, sometimes not some of them as much as others that we're focused on, because it's really hard to keep up with all of this. But we do want you to have, for instance, on childhood so-called vaccines, these immunizations, which are proving to be at the core of autism and all kinds of other diseases, that our kids are picking up later in life. And the kids that have been immunized are some of the sickest they are discovering of any, compared to kids that are so-called unvaxxed. So here's 15-minute cities, finances, food security. Dan Vachon, our prepper Dan Vachon, was on last week. That's where you would find him. How to can, how to preserve, how to plant, how to plow, manure. He talks about manure, so it's all good. Homeschooling revolution is our solution to getting your kids out of the school. We just don't want to say, hey, panic, right? We're about solutions. So you can go into that. Political Islam is a huge one for us, as well as the LGBTQ. UNDRIP we're addressing, and there's the information on the World Economic Forum. So now we're going to move into, just briefly, we're going to move into another very important topic, but this is the time of year to be addressing this. Before June, the so-called month of Pride Month, right? It's actually Pride season and Pride year. It's Pride Day, every day of the year. We're shutting it down. They know that they're losing. And so, Kim, let's talk about Strathmore for a moment, which again is not too far away from you. So we decided to launch this call to action. And on May 6th, the decision is going to be made about what?
Well, we caught wind of that again because we have people in the community that are watching what council's bringing forward. So there's a gentleman on council that, again, taking, I believe, a page out of the direction from the overall direction of Alberta, which is to bring neutrality back to the public space. We've already had a number of towns that have decided, you know what, no flags except for the municipal, the provincial, and the federal flag are going to be flown in their on public buildings, because that's the unifier. We all come under one banner, being Canadian. And yeah, there's people with many cultures, but there is one Canada. And so we want to bring people under that. So that's sort of been a trend that's developing in Alberta. I know that the provincial government, from its members, are given that as a directive, is we want to have unity in our community. And we don't want these divisive, politically charged symbols causing havoc in the streets and on city councils, where they have to spend their time debating those issues, which takes them away from, fixing the pipes and making good local decisions. I'm not saying that this was a pipe issue here in Strathmore, although Strathmore does get their water from Calgary. Even though they don't get to elect the council in Calgary, they are still part of the water system. So, what happens in Calgary affects them. So anyways, this gentleman, brave, going to take it on in council. He put a motion forward, and that's what we have been supportive of, and we're bringing to the attention of our members base, and for them to share out with their community and to have a discussion, because it'll affect them. So I know someone very personally who lives in Strathmore, who's actually a member of Action for Canada, and she has taken on this issue in the past, saying, who's paying for the upkeep of these flags and these sidewalks and whatnot? Why is that a good use of public funds when we have all these other things we could be concerned about? So they addressed that once before. So she made delegation, or she spoke. She wrote letters too, just on her own as a citizen of Strathmore. And so this one came along too. And so we pumped it out, and we've given people the opportunity to write a letter in support of this councilman, and also to give the resources. And I saw you pull that up there about the non-governmental flags. So this member sent it in, as well as gave him gave the whole council some information on what exactly that particular, the pride flag, who created it, what it stands for, what it means. So she was able to give that material to the council for further thought on the issue as a whole. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, Kim, it's awesome to see this. And I really want to give a big shout out to Councillor, his name is Councillor Brent. I just saw his name. Brent
Wiley.
Councillor Brent Wiley. Well done, sir. He's like a lone wolf on there, and that's why he needs all of our support, and that's why he needs support in the next election. One, to get him reelected, and one, to get more people like him into office. But he made a very bold statement, a very accurate statement, says, I'm contesting that neutrality is the ultimate form of inclusion. Neutrality ensures that every resident feels welcome and represented by their town, and would allow my council to focus their time and our administration to focus their resources on issues that are really important, like fiscal and operational matters, instead of divisive and contentious issues. Isn't that just a fact? And so we have highlighted as well that we want neutrality, but we must insist that it does not mean neutral to Canadian heritage.
Exactly.
Right? If that's offensive to people that have moved here, then you're in the wrong country. You need to decide someplace, because we will continue to celebrate Canadian celebrations and traditions, Canadian heritage. So make sure when you go into town, don't be lulled into believing that we need to compromise our Canadian values in order to support this neutrality issue, because that's the only way politically correct mayors and councils seem to feel that they can address this issue. So it's got to be all things Canada must maintain. And so we wanted to bring this up. This is Strathmore Pride. Of course, you know, they're up in arms and very upset about it, because they've been running roughshod over everybody. And they talk about, you know, the stop the neutrality bylaw. Why? Why can't you just go and live your life? I don't want to know about your sexual preferences. I don't care. Go walk your dog, work your job, buy a home, and just be a really good part of society. I don't have to support what it is that you believe. And they've had a long run at this, because they've had people supporting them in elected positions, which goes back to me saying why it is so important for you to get involved in the election process and helping people.
I want to say something on this particular poster that was put out by the Strathmore Pride. They got a little posse together to write their letters, and they booked out a room in the local library. And so they're doing the same thing. I mean, we put it to our public. They wrote letters. They're expressing their concern, and they have every right to do that. I'm just saying that they did that. But take a look at the poster that they have there. Oh, well, of course, the rainbow side is very vibrant, very bright. And then, oh, the black and white world. So even in their own declaration, they're showing that this is a divisive issue. They're showing the politics right there. And to your point, and I in 100% agreement, a neutral public space is not a sterile public space. It's not sterile at all. In fact, the public space that unifies everybody is what made Canada great. Our Canadian heritage. I'm going to comment on this. I've been down at City Hall in Calgary doing prayer walks for revival. And so anybody in the Calgary area, come on out 2:00 on a Sunday afternoon by the horse statues. And we're there just praying for those in leadership and making good policies, etc. But at the same time, that public space is being used for a pro-democracy group that is trying to raise awareness for Iran. And so the Persian community is pro-democratic. They always start with "O Canada." Before they go into anything else, it's "O Canada." They're draping themselves in the flag, the Canadian flag. They had the Israeli flag flying. They had the American flag flying. And then they had their, you know, post-Ayatollah regime flag, and from when they got taken over. But that being said, these were newcomers that came to Canada because there was something about Canada that they loved. It gave them freedom, and they love it. And they even had "Make Canada Great Again" hats. And these are Iranians or Persian community, right? I don't even want to call them Iranians. They're Persians. So the fact is, Canada is unifying. Our nation has always been welcoming to all kinds of people, but for some reason, we're like, no, we don't need to celebrate how wonderful we are. We don't need to celebrate that our freedoms come from our Judeo-Christian values that underpins everything, our legal system, our moral system, you know, and our culture. So come in and be part of our culture, embrace that, and be free in it. And so this dividing people up into this category or that category. It's a very Marxist thing to do. So when I look at that, I'm like, no. We can have just as vibrant a space by celebrating Canadian heritage. And it's not about being sterile at all.
It's about manipulation.
Well, yeah.
They like to manipulate the public, and for a while they were good at it. Okay, so, and I'm hoping that sometime in the near future, Canadians will refer to themselves as Canadians no matter where they're from. I don't want to hear about Chinese Canadians, Hindu Canadians. I'm a Canadian and I'm proud to be here. Otherwise, you know what, maybe they're just still too divided. But coming up to Pride Month, what we're asking is that you take Action for Canada's letter that we provided here. You print it off. You just put your name on there. You go to your local principal. You go to the school board trustees. You go to your mayor and city council and said, we've had enough of this pandering to this minority group. It's extremely divisive. It's upsetting. I don't want my kids exposed to this any longer because they've passed the point. It's no longer about anti-bullying. It's about you accept my way or the highway. And they're the bullies. They are massive bullies. And there's just got to be a stop to it. And so it is amazing when you help to educate them on who created the pride flag, Gilbert Baker, who said that's what flags are for. Flags are about proclaiming power as they're setting that flag on the land in the schools and the cities. I don't want them controlling our land. I didn't vote for them. I didn't elect them. This is a political force that needs to be dismantled as far as their presence in our public spaces. Enough is enough. You need to draw the line. And then the creator of the trans flag, he was a pedophile. And he had sick sexual deviant fetishes. And it's like, why are you celebrating that? Why do you want to celebrate that as, the principal of a school? Everybody in Canada has been way too nice, way too accepting, and it's time to take a stand on behalf of our kids. And then finally, on our political LGBTQ page as well, we've got this wonderful document, Do You Know? And again, that came from team members who put this together, showing even like, look at what the kids are exposed to at the pride parades. Why are we allowing public nudity on our streets and the police right there turning a blind eye? Everybody should be equal under the law, right? Well, if we're not going to enforce it and insist upon it, then we're going to get what we are getting. And so this is a great resource, even to bring to business owners who have been bullied to death to put that little political symbol in their windows. And they've said, we just finally gave in. We don't want it there, but we gave in because they were bullying business owners. Well, let the business owners give them this resource and let them know what it is they're actually supporting. So like I say, this is very important going into June. It's important any time of the year, but we just want you to know the resources that we have to push back. Okay, Kim, so let's get into this right now. I'm going to give just a slight history on it. This was in Manitoba, and these were these little porn cards that were, accidentally by Planned Parenthood given to kids in grade 6 and grade 7. And it certainly was not by any mistake. And so we started our campaign in Saskatchewan by creating information to show the measurable harms to children that SOGI 123 or WinSec Ed, whatever it's called in your province, back to basics in some provinces. Anyways, we'll call it SOGI 123. And they were sneaky under the radar, trying to get it into the education system. Our chapter leader found out about it in April. We put on a huge campaign. Planned Parenthood had also accidentally exposed children to these pornographic cards in Saskatchewan as well. Like, nothing is done by accident. These people are reckless and they have no business. These third parties should have no business being anywhere near our kids or invited into the classrooms to speak on any issue. Anyways, we got the Planned Parenthood banned, and through the materials, we got SOGI shut down. And so now I'm just going to back up to, October of 2024, where Kim and Sandra, it's at the top of my X account if you want to see the video on that, at Tanya Gaw on X, and they went and approached Minister Nicolaides with this beautiful 3-inch binder, and we ended up having the massive win. I won't go too deep into that because I think we've talked about it often enough that the minister responded with shock and awe. Kim, he said he was gobsmacked.
Yeah, he did. Those were his exact words, gobsmacked.
Yeah. When you had showed him the pornographic books and some of the content and the language being used in other books that was so crude and so graphic, I can't imagine any decent adult speaking like that. And this is what was accessible to our children. So let me hand it over to you for a moment. I'll click through just a couple of links. So I'll go from here to there, and then you explain this situation.
Sure. Okay. So what ended up happening is, again, the key to making change in the political realm is that the politicians have to sense a movement building, and they like to jump in front of the parade. That's what one of our former premiers used to say: find a parade and jump in front of it. But this was a good parade of the fact is that the public, there was a groundswell in the public to say, we do not want kids to be mutilated on our dollar. We don't want them mutilated at all, but why is the government pushing this? And so, really, when it came out that the current administration of Alberta under Premier Daniel Smith, they put forward protection of children, protection of girls' spaces, protection of girls in sports, protection of, the children from puberty blockers and all of that until they're of an age where they can make that decision for themselves as adults. They can decide what they want to do at that point. But Premier Daniel Smith was absolutely right on that. Why are we allowing them to make a permanent decision when they're not capable of making that decision at such a young age and so permanent? So she and her administration put forward a very bold bill, and of course, tons of backlash from the organized activist group. And so what happened was I heard about this. We put forward a letter to our members, and we said, hey, give credit where credit's due, as you can see. And so we provided a letter, like you might want to write a letter like this, or you can write your own, but please acknowledge that there has been a shift with this administration, because they finally had the political appetite to deal with it, because they could reflect on what the public were obviously en masse mailing into them, and they were hearing loud and clear from the public that they wanted this to be changed. So they did. And so that gratitude, just by sending out the thank you, what happened was Premier Daniel Smith was in locally. She was here locally at an event, and I showed up as a constituent, and they had an open mic session. So they asked, they said, give your 30 seconds of a question and whatnot. And so my question was simply that, well, thank you, Premier, for what you've done. But I'm part of an organization that has sent you a binder, rather thick binder, and we really would like to discuss it at length. And she said, yeah, okay, I'll write that down. I'll make sure the minister is aware, and I'd like him to look into this and to hear what you have to say. That was it. There was no major lobbying or blah, blah. It was just me showing up saying, thank you. Hey, we have this information. Can we talk to you about it? And that's what happened with Minister Nicolaides. Yeah, it was great.
Yep. That was amazing. And that led to the sit down in October of 2024, some interaction there with his office. And a few months later, they wanted to take a look to see if these books were real. And we provided them. They were only printed the day before that you had handed them to him. But they did their due diligence, and they got the information. And several months later, they come out and actually call them pornographic. We're going to get rid of these books. And of course, the other side is lighting their hair on fire, banning books. Nenshi is out there saying, they're banning books. I'm like, could you bring in, pornographic magazines? What are they called again? What are the names of the dirty magazines?
Oh, I don't even know them.
I don't even know anymore.
Playboy.
Yeah, that's it. And, things. And it's like, oh yeah, would you have those in school? And then, we want to take them out because that's not morally right. We don't want our kids exposed to this graphic nudity. And just because it's in cartoon, you figure that this isn't graphic and going to affect the minds of these children. I mean, this is sick. And if we don't, as a majority, stand up and take care of it, then, it will carry on. And so I believe that our mission to educate the public has been very effective. Kim, you know that when after COVID, we tens of thousands of people started following Action for Canada after that, and we're very involved with our COVID notices of liability and helping us out there. But then I thought, okay, we're getting through this season now. It's time to start talking about these other issues. And I really got attacked for talking about SOGI, like as if I was a hater and a racist, all the homophobic. I didn't even know what the word homophobic is. I think they make up half of this stuff. But anyways, the whole thing is I really wasn't too concerned because I knew that in time, once people actually got the information and started educating themselves on what was being presented to our children in the schools, how they were being indoctrinated and groomed and sexualized, but indoctrinated into these ideologies that were moving them away from embracing the God-given design, the body that they were born into, and confusing them to this mass social contagion. And then they're saying, oh, no, this is just they're now able to celebrate their own true self. Well, how about you stop teaching this in the schools and confusing them and tell me who their true self would be in the future? Just like knock it off. So, of course, the activists had gotten deeply into the government positions, and some of them thought they were doing a noble cause, and it really truly was about anti-bullying. And through this process of education, we have stood the test of time. And now those naysayers that were attacking me, they don't want to come join Action for Canada, but they'll open up their own little group. And I'm like, hey, that's good. Just, you know what? Just fight against this and let's save our kids. And I'll go from here. And then, those were those previous ones.
Yeah, this particular action, again, was in the local Calgary area. This came from a member who had received this email from Fairview School, which is a school in Calgary, in the Calgary Board of Education. And this came out and he was appalled. This was a parent whose kid is in the school. And he was appalled that these accommodations were going to be made for a very small minority who make it their practice to fast in the way that they do. And, you know, that's part of what they think they need to do. But now everybody else is inconvenienced because they have a particular way they want to live. So this was to, you know, give a space for them to go. And so this came to our attention. And so we just put it out to the membership again and to say, look, do we want to be making this kind of accommodation for, these small groups? Why is everybody else pushed to the side for a very vocal minority? Yep. And this individual did actually write on his own to the school and received an answer back. And they try to parse words and say, oh, well, they always had a space to eat, and they try to make it a non-issue. But it's the bigger issue of how, again, are we keeping the space neutral? Like, do they have places where, other religions can perform their acts of service to their religion? That's not the point of school. And so that's what that one was about. And again, it went viral. I think 6 million people saw that one.
Around the world. This went international. I know even on my X account, for some reason, a little slow there, but we put it out there and I had 157,000 views in a very short period of time. But yeah, Ramadan was being celebrated and the lunchrooms were being closed and kids weren't, to accommodate. I think in that community, it's even less than 1% of the population. So it's ridiculous, right? It's this pandering to a certain group, and it's because they're the squeaky wheel making these demands. And so you either come to Canada, you assimilate, you integrate into our way of life. Multiculturalism does not mean that you get to come here and transplant your failed foreign systems of governance here. It means that we're an accommodating nation in the sense that there are many people from other cultures living here, but that's the end of it. What you do in your own home, you need to speak English or French out in public. You need to embrace, you need to respect our school system and what we teach. And this is where we're heading. And so from this pushback, it created a lot of attention. We made sure that we CC'd the Minister of Education and Danielle Smith, Premier Smith, in this call to action as well. So it's all about bringing public awareness. What are the masses unhappy about right now? Because they're not hearing from you. And the government really needs to hear from you, because we are changing the conversation at the top political levels by doing this. And so we're just very happy with that. And so then, Kim, we sent out a reminder for people to take action. Last year, we did the Great Win because they started removing the books, but we said, hey, that's fantastic, but we want SOGI removed. This is indoctrinating our children. This is what's leading them to think that boys can, play in girls' sports or be in their change rooms, or for boys and girls to be so-called changing to the opposite sex, which is impossible. It's cruel to put kids through this, and well as destroying families and parents. And it was just, it's enough is enough. And so the Premier and Minister Nicolaides and the Minister of Municipalities came out with very solid legislation saying that they are going to be removing the political and ideological agendas from within the schools. And as I highlighted here, this includes SOGI 123. And Kim and I, if you hadn't seen this already, Kim and we did this separately. It was actually a picture with Minister Nicolaides and then a picture with Premier Daniel Smith, but it was too much to put on one page here. But we went there personally to an event recently to thank them for the work that we're doing. And we think this is very important. That's one of the reasons why we say, please support Action for Canada and the work we're doing. I was also in Ottawa recently as well, lobbying government, advocacy work on behalf of our children, on behalf of our sovereignty. And I think that's, really
I think you also were there to really elevate our heritage. I think you were there to, educate people on elected officials on the rich heritage, like our coronation oath. I know you've been talking about that a lot. So these buried treasures, as you've called it, where I didn't know that. I never learned that in school, that we had a coronation oath and that we were to be governed by the, Protestant religion, the true profession of the gospel. I would not have known it. I knew that we had the supremacy of God and the rule of law as our constitution, but I didn't know these other little gems in our heritage, because they weren't teaching it. That's a long time ago when I was in school. But even way back then, they were scrubbing our heritage. So on that one about the ideology, though, it's currently still receiving a lot of attention in the media, particularly here in Alberta. People in the opposition wanting to make it into something more than it is. Like somehow they're in the pocket of certain groups. And no, I'll say clearly, they're responsive to they're responsive to their constituents. So the people of Alberta have spoken loud and clear, and they are hearing that, and they are moving forward with those things that are reflective of the majority of Albertans. And so the opposition wants to make it about, now they're dealing with special interest groups. Well, I am a citizen of Alberta. So as a constituent, I have concerns about these things. I've been able to obviously use the resources that Action for Canada has provided, and I make myself available to these elected officials to educate them. So I'm taking a page out of Action for Canada's playbook. I am going to my local community, and I'm finding a way to get the attention of my representatives. So that's basically it. Yeah.
It's interesting, Kim, because the other side, because they've had individuals in office who have supported this woke ideology, very destructive, and we've referred to it as Marxism, and that right now they're marching little Marxist soldiers out of the schools with all the DEI, critical race theory, climate change hysteria, land acknowledgements, and it's all being shut down. And when they said political and ideologies, that means SOGI's being removed, DEI, CRT, land acknowledgement should be removed. And that absolutely needs to take place. So the real problem they're having is with democracy.
Yeah.
Because these are socialists, these are Marxists that we're up against in a democratic nation that bases itself on freedom. If they don't like it, man, I would buy these people a one-way ticket to China. If you so much like to live in that, or Venezuela or Cuba, somewhere, where you want to be restricted and, be dealt with by the government, have everything controlled. It just makes no sense to me as to why they would want to go down this route. But enough is enough. Everybody needs to stay in their lane and respect other people's boundaries. And we're coming back finally to a little bit of sanity. You mentioned that Canada is a Christian nation. We have a wonderful, wonderful PDF document that we would encourage you to share with your local officials. We have Sikhs, we have Muslims sitting in the legislature and in the House of Commons who swore an oath. The Muslims have sworn an oath on the Quran. How can they possibly uphold Canadian principles? And so this shows you very clearly what I've created here is this is a resource to show, no, this is a Christian nation. And you've taken an oath, they've still taken an oath to govern according to the coronation oath. We've been talking a lot about that, and they still have a duty to uphold our Christian principles, whether they like it or not. They'll turn around and say, oh, it's a multicultural nation. And I keep going back. No, it's multiculturalism has its limits. It doesn't mean that you can come in here and bring in foreign governance. So this only happens when people are educated enough to know that in order to fight back against it.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing that, when we say that we founded on the principles that acknowledge the supremacy of God, people need to understand what that means. It makes all human beings equal before us, something bigger than us, and how you engage with that that is greater than us, God, is completely your free will and your choice to engage however you want. That's what makes Christian nations fundamentally different than any other, because all the other nations and all the other regimes of governance, they don't necessarily have the supremacy of God as an understanding what that means, which makes all of us equal. They only have the rule of law, and the only people that get to determine what laws are the right laws are the people that have all the power. So you've got tyranny. So the beautiful thing, like, I know people think, well, do we all have to be Christian to be Canadian? No, but you have to understand that Christianity and our worldview and the foundation of that allows you freedom. So that's the complete difference, and why that needs to continue to be upheld, so that we don't have a small faction in government that gets to determine who's a worthy person. They call it now, Tanya, in this ideology, equity deserving people. I'm like, equity deserving? We're all equal. And that, the Bible literally says that God's not a respecter of persons, in that, oh, you're a better person or another person. He says, you're my creation, made in my image, live according to these good principles. But that's what they say, equity deserving people. So they literally have, it's I think at least in New Brunswick, they had white Christian males need not apply. Literally writing these words down. It's like, well, 70, and actually here in Calgary, they had the Calgary Board of Education commissioned a report called the CBE Cares Report. It's fraught with terrible academic design and research, but I won't get into that. The point that was important is that they said the Calgary Board of Education was too white, too conservative, too Christian. And I'm thinking, well, 78% of us are white. That's just because that's the constitution of our country. So 78% of the population needs to not be even considered, which is the majority. Well, that's how the minority gets to tyrannize the majority, because they lull us into doing that. So we need to get that divisive intersectionality, that Marxist intersectionality that says who's the more equity deserving person. We even had that in our NDP, the federal NDP convention, where they were all holding up their equity cards to say, I should go ahead of this person because I've got the card.
Oh, it's no way for any society to function. No. Equality is good. The beautiful thing about our God, the one and only God, is that he doesn't care about the color of our skin. He cares about the condition of our hearts and minds. Christians are all over the world. And if people want to come to Canada and embrace that great. But if not, we have a right to our boundaries, and
Yes.
when we're asserting those boundaries now. And so, Kim, I think in closing, I just want to give honor to Minister Nicolaides for a moment. We're going to play this clip when he was talking about the tabling of Bill 25 and what it really means against the naysayers, of course, and the wordsmithing that they would come up with in order to oppose this.
Much needed sense of order to the symbols as well and displays within our schools. Mr. Speaker, symbols are powerful and they should be used to unite us rather than divide us. The Canadian flag and our provincial flag are symbols that belong to every single person in this province. They represent our shared history, our common laws, and our collective future. And by establishing these as primary symbols of our educational institutions, we are reinforcing a sense of national and provincial identity that transcends individual affiliations. This is not about exclusion, it's about finding the common ground that allows a diverse population to live and learn together in harmony.
Wonderful. Isn't that just so simple? That's how we want to live, in harmony. You stay in your lane. If we don't agree, I'll stay in my lane. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be able to greet each other or help each other out if we're in need. So that's truly living lovingly and peacefully together. In closing here, what I just wanted to bring up, happens on sometimes these articles. So there's this fella in Kelowna, and Wilbur Turner. And so he turned around. He was very upset with the article that we put out regarding, what's transpiring in Alberta and the fairness to parents and students to help get them educated so they're actually ready for the real life once they graduate. Anyways, it's a bit of a smear campaign. And then I got a bit of a chuckle out down at the bottom. It's very lengthy. He put a lot of time into this. So Kim, I don't know if I can find it, but help me out.
I think it's higher up, Tanya. You're
is
in
it higher up?
Yeah, you're in the comment section right now.
I think that's where it was, though. I thought was somebody was saying that there's got to be somebody else behind this organization, because of all the money that we are raking in. And it was like, it's not true. That's not how Action for Canada. We got a very tight budget that we're running by. And nobody on our team is making $60, $80, $90, $150, $1,000 a year. Like, none of that is going on. Yet all of these LGBTQ groups, I'm just going to go to the next slide. So read the article if you want to bother, don't bother. He doesn't have a huge following or anything like that, but it was really quite something. There it is. I just needed to move that over. So in previous presentations that I have given, I brought up rainbow faith and freedom, worshiping with love, and it says exploring experiences of religious-based homophobia and transphobia in places of worship. And this is being funded by Canadians through the Women and Gender Equality Canada Rainbow Faith and Freedom. And it's hundreds of millions of dollars of Canadians' tax dollars that are going into these groups. This is a money-making industry. There's no doubt that activists have a personal agenda. There are some of them that really truly feel they need to be more accepted or that they want this taught in the schools. But this is a money-making field for those who are receiving the federal funding, provincial funding, even municipal funding for their pride parades when it comes down to that. So we should be outraged. And what is it that they're doing here, Kim? What is what is their objective?
Well, their objective is to actually infiltrate the Christian community and to convert us to their ways, I guess. But what I find hilarious in a really satirical way is that this document is $500 million, not tens of, like $500 million to produce this report, to spread it out. And that's $500 million of Canadian taxpayer funded dollars. And yet the other side that is so upset about the advancements Action for Canada is making and trying to say that somehow we have these massive deep pockets. And I laugh, but you know what you said, we don't have a big funder behind us, but we have the Lord Almighty, King of Heaven. And so I would say, and we have the collective sacrificial love of this country, of all the people that have joined our team, all our members that are on our mailing list that take our actions and move them forward and are taking their posts in their community. So we have all of the human capital of people who are committed. And like I said at the beginning, Tanya, you've always been someone who has been uncompromising in your convictions, and you've always stood behind them. I think that's what people can see. That's what people can get behind. And then when they hear stories like this and they see how little by little by little it's growing and affecting the change that they want to see. I know Gandhi said it, be the change you want to see in the world. And, even if it was Gandhi who said it, the fact is we are being the change, but our source of our strength and our conviction, even when it's a tough slog and it's discouraging sometimes when we see how big the battle is it's like David and Goliath. So we have the King of Heaven who is on our side, on the side of right, who wants to see Canada turned and brought back to its good foundations. And so we don't have deep, deep pockets, but we got the King of Heaven on our side. So I don't really think this $500 million document has any chance against righteousness and the goodwill of people who get behind a righteous cause.
And a righteous moral cause, and that's what we're doing. We see harm that is being done, Kim, and we're addressing it. And for people to pretend one thing while they're doing another, they're down a one-way street, and everything only works for them. And to think that they would have the gall, this Rainbow of Faith and Freedom, it says, is a Toronto-based charity that directly confronts and ends religious-based discrimination to make the world safer for 2S LGBTQ. It's got to stop. We need our own spaces. Those spaces need to be respected. We're not all going to agree. And I just wonder sometimes if it was flipped, how would they like it if I was coming at them saying, you must agree with me being a Christian, and forcing them and enforcing that upon them. It's not how a free society works. And so we're asking them respectfully, back off, get into your own lane, stop attacking the churches, stop attacking our children, and then let's move forward to healing, and so that we can all prosper. Now, as we close, I just want to remind people, if you come to contacts under Action for Canada, actually right up here in the menu, you can see A4C chapters. If something we've said today is sparking, like, you know what, I want to be part of this cool team. We're really awesome. We're a wonderful family. It really is a wonderful family at Action for Canada. We would do anything for each other. So, consider becoming a chapter leader or signing up with a local chapter. And then again, consider, somebody that you're saying, you'd make a really good candidate as school trustee or as mayor. I want to vote for you as mayor. Let me help you achieve that, and get behind them. Get your church moving and rolling and getting behind these candidates as well, and knock it off with there's a separation of church and state. That's absolutely wrong. We 100% need to be involved in getting good, godly people into government. So finally, Kim, I'm going to just finish off with one of my favorite verses, and it goes true to what it is that we're talking about tonight and should encourage our viewers. Galatians 6:9 says, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. And so with that, Kim, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm going to ask our viewers to please, when we post this video, give us a thumbs up, share it with others. And I hope this has encouraged you tonight to get really motivated and active within your community, because we can together create the kind of change to take our country back. So Kim, have you got anything in closing?
No, I think we've covered it off there, but we need you. You need us, we need you, and we need to be part of this movement and keep the momentum going. We have seen a massive shift. And so please, I love that quote, don't become weary in well-doing, because just at the proper time, it's going to affect what God has intended. And so we get to be a part of it. And I can concur. We've got a pretty cool team of people. I do genuinely love every one of them. So come be a part of it. Come find out about it.
Awesome. Well, wonderful, Kim. Thank you. And so to everyone, we hope to see you next week. And I'm going to wish you a very, oh man, can you see the weather's coming out and the flowers are starting to bloom? It's just awesome. It's amazing. Get out there, be happy, spend time with your family, love on people. And I just say, God bless you and God bless Canada.
Thank you for joining us for tonight's Empower Hour. Our guest for next week is Jocelyn Rodriguez, and she and Tanya will be having a conversation about abortion regret. So be sure to join us for that. And now may the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord smile on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord show you his favor and give you his peace. See you all next week. In times of financial uncertainty, safeguarding your assets is increasingly important. In response to ongoing inflation, economic challenges, and market instability, many Canadians are adopting the timeless strategy of investing in precious metals. Historically, gold and silver have held their value, safeguarding your assets against economic turmoil. Action for Canada is pleased to announce our partnership with Steve of Sun City Silver, providing valued members of A4C with expanded investment opportunities designed to help you achieve your financial goals. Steve is an ally of the Freedom Movement, and he's offering members of Action for Canada exclusive access to some of Canada's premier prices. By leveraging his connections with Silver Gold Bull, you can access competitive rates for securing your precious metals. Silver Gold Bull is a trusted Canadian leader, offering live pricing 24/7 and boasting nearly 400,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot. For an order of $5,000, be sure to indicate you're an Action for Canada member and receive a complimentary 1967 silver dollar, courtesy of Sun City Silver. Expand your collection further by referring a new customer who places a similar order, and Steve will reward you with a special bonus thank you gift. Your purchase with Steve is a dual investment. You invest in your future while simultaneously supporting the Freedom Movement with a percentage of each sale benefiting Action for Canada. For more information, be sure to visit actionforcanada.com/purchasing-precious-metals/. Secure your assets. Protect your future. Support Action for Canada and the Freedom Movement. The information presented is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended to provide financial, legal, or tax advice, as we are not licensed financial advisors, accountants, or attorneys and cannot provide professional counsel. Be advised that the content and information provided does not create a client relationship. We recommend you consult with a qualified professional advisor before making any financial, legal, or tax decisions. Please note that Action for Canada is not responsible for an individual's financial outcome. Remember, your decisions are your own, and we recommend doing your own research before making any investment.
Are completely 100% unlawful. Judgment will again be found on justice, and those with virtuous hearts will pursue it. You have a virtuous heart if you are here today pursuing freedom and righteousness.